A 40-year-old mom who was supposed to love and protect her two sweet sons is going to prison for the rest of her life for shooting the boys in the head as they slept in their beds. Trinh Nguyen also admitted to trying to kill her nephew. How could she deny it? A camera caught the entire thing. The DA is here to talk about the disturbing case. I'm Angenette Levy. It's Friday, and this is Crime Fix. This case is absolutely beyond the pale. It's one of those where, as a mom especially, I can't wrap my head around it at all. Trinh Nguyen admitted this week to shooting her two sons in the head as they were laying in their beds, killing them. Jeffrey Tini was just 13. His younger brother, Nelson Tini, was 9. The boys were in their beds on May 2nd, 2022, when Nguyen shot them with a .38 caliber revolver. You can see those sweet little boys in photos that were shown in court this week. The DA says Nguyen was angry with her ex-husband and wanted him to pay, and this was her twisted way of doing that. Then she went to the home of her husband's nephew, Gianni Melchianato, and tried to kill him. That was recorded by a doorbell camera. But thank goodness, the gun did not fire properly. The DA is going to tell you why here in a little bit. And Melchianato was able to disarm Nguyen. She drove to New Jersey and tried to overdose on narcotics. A judge in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, sentenced her to 2 consecutive life sentences this week, so she will never, ever, ever get out of prison. Joining me to discuss this awful, horrific, and I cannot emphasize enough, horrific case is Jen Schorn. She is the first assistant district attorney in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and really, she's going to be the DA here soon. So congratulations on that, Jen, and welcome to Crime Fix. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Tell me, if you would, this case is heartbreaking. These little boys were killed by their mother. She has now confessed to it, pleaded guilty. She'll be spending the rest of her life in prison. Tell me a little bit about the case and how it unfolded.
Yeah, simply horrific. The defendant, Trinh Nguyen, decided that she wanted to take her son's lives. We believe in large part to make her ex-husband pay. So while they were sleeping in their beds, she shot her 13-year-old son, Jeffrey, and her 9-year-old son, Nelson. Following that, she attempted to murder her 19-year-old nephew, Gianni, as he was loading his car to go to work that day. Due to a mistake on her part, the gun did not fire properly and he was able to disarm her. And it wasn't until after the police responded to his attempt at murder that they discovered the horrific scene inside the residence with the 2 little boys dying in their beds.
And she had actually written this will out. It's my understanding from reading the materials, describing what she wanted to happen. And she had grievances. It sounds like she was blaming everybody in the world for her issues except for herself.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, we characterize it as like a manifesto. In the weeks leading up to Nelson and Jeffrey's death, their mother, the defendant, planned everything out systematically and blamed, her ex-husband. Any personality trait that she took issue with her one son, she said she feared he was going to turn out to be like his father, which was completely just senseless and ridiculous. And she said her other son was too naive and good for this world, so she wanted to take his life to spare him pain. She blamed the owner of the home, who was her ex-sister-in-law, for evicting her. She made it seem like she was facing poverty when, in fact, she was pretty comfortable financially following the divorce. In fact, quite comfortable. So it just, and she blamed, the judge that presided over the eviction, just wanted to create this false narrative to justify the most horrendous crime. Quite frankly, one of the worst I've ever seen.
I mean, those poor boys, I can't even imagine what the family is going through. Were the boys asleep when this happened, or had they been falling asleep? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we believe, we can't say precisely the exact time that they were shot in their beds, but it was in the early morning hours. We believe she waited in the home for quite some time, waiting to pursue her third target, her nephew, while they were dying in their beds. Probably the most heartbreaking is that her 9-year-old son, Nelson, had some level of awareness, consciousness, I should say, when police and his aunt discovered him. He was banging his head, indicating obviously the pain he was suffering from the gunshot wound. It was horrific, simply horrific. And law enforcement was outstanding in that within a few hours they apprehended this defendant and overwhelming evidence to prove her guilt.
I mean, thank goodness for the nephew that the gun did malfunction or she didn't do it right or what have you. And there's video that exists. She was captured kind of trying to shoot at him. And she made a fatal mistake in that after shooting her 2 sons, she removed the spent casings from the revolver, and call it hand to God fate. It allowed when she pulled the trigger to shoot her nephew, it landed on an empty chamber once, empty chamber twice. That third trigger pull would have been a fatal shot to her nephew. But that hesitation between trigger pull 2 and the start of trigger pull 3 allowed him to intervene and disarm her. And then she still tried to convince him the gun was not loaded. We know for a fact, had Gianni not acted, he would have suffered a fatal gunshot wound, and one only knows who else she would have killed before taking her own life or attempting to take her own life. This is definitely not a case where it's a whodunit. So as part of her guilty plea, was she required to sit down with detectives or sit down with you and her attorney and explain why she did this or how she arranged it, everything like that, allocute or give a formal, police statement, saying, yeah, this is why I did it. This is how I did it, all of that stuff.
We actually didn't need that from her because the investigation was so thorough and so complete and the evidence was overwhelming. Ultimately, the decision, she's going to serve a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and it's consecutive to a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Consecutive to that is the statutory maximum for attempted murder. We had a tough decision to make because it was certified as a capital case, given the age of the victims and the fact that there were multiple victims. And we discussed with the family what their wishes were. And we felt this was the best outcome, spare everybody from the heartache of a trial. But we didn't have to. And she chose not to allocute. But we did not have to sit down and proffer with her because we had such strong evidence and we knew justice was on our side.
Did she offer any type of statement of remorse or love for her children? I don't know how you do something like this and then actually feel remorse. I don't get it. I'm a mom. I don't understand how people do things like this. But did she offer any type of anything? No, not at all. Truly, one of the most difficult proceedings I've been prosecuting for 24 years, and the proceeding yesterday was just so heavy. The victims' family members that spoke were so eloquent and beautiful in expressing to the judge the impact, the loss of the boys, and the attempted loss of our third victim, Gianni, how that weighed on them. And it was heartbreaking, but she offered nothing. As a prosecutor, you get to know the victims in the case. You get to know things. You get to know things about the people who died, the ultimate victims here. What can you tell us about Jeffrey and Nelson? What can you tell us about these boys?
Nelson, for starters, his love for baseball was evident. And I know his father really appreciates the baseball community, the families and loved ones from that community that supported him following this. And, I think one of the most powerful pictures we presented during Victim Impact was, forever in our hearts. And they had Nelson's number, and all of the athletes, all the students wore that on their uniforms. And then Jeffrey was a very talented swimmer. And by all accounts, everybody said he was the most lovely kid, didn't have a mean bone in his body. Just the school community, their athletic community, and just the community in general, the outpouring of grief was pretty tremendous to see. So Yeah, pretty special kids, it seems. And yeah, as a parent, you think of all the milestones, and especially this time of year at the holidays, what kids should be thinking about, and, school break and the holidays and gifts and, time with family. And it's just, it compounds the devastation.
Most certainly. Were Jeffrey and Nelson their father's only children?
So, Nelson was the biological son of this defendant's ex-husband, second ex-husband, and Jeffrey was his stepson and the biological son of her first husband. And they had a third brother who thankfully did not live in the home, was living on the West Coast and in school at the time. But you can only imagine his grief, losing his two brothers.
Yeah, most certainly. Well, this is a heartbreaking thing to happen any time of the year. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas, but this is going to be even more difficult moving into the holidays without those boys. And sadly, this is what we can offer as society. This is the accountability that can be offered, and we can just hope that those boys are resting in peace. Is there anything you'd like to add, Jen? Are there any final thoughts?
Just, like I said, the family is remarkable. You just saw the ripple effect of, the grief layer upon layer upon layer through family members, the community. It's just heartbreaking, but they showed such strength and dignity coming to court. And for those that could, offered impact statements, and just pretty remarkable. And then just commending law enforcement again. Like you said, we can offer justice. We can't diminish the pain, but at least we were able to get justice for Nelson and Jeffrey and their third cousin who survived the attempt.
Most definitely. Thank you, Jen Schorn, soon to be Bucks County District Attorney, for your time. Thanks for joining us, and we hope that you have a good holiday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Same to you as well.
And that's it for Crime Fix on this Friday, December 22nd, 2023. I'm Angenette Levy. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to see you back here on Monday, Christmas Day, with a special episode. Merry Christmas. Have a great weekend. Have fun with your families, and we will see you back here on Monday.